Today, I want to show you how you can use AI tools to find a new job. And being vulnerable and transparent with you, I feel like I've been stagnating a bit in what I've been doing with my company and have recently decided to accept a full-time offer with a company. I'm not going to totally get into that today. I think that's a whole other video or post to share. But what I do want to share with you is how I got that job, my process, and some of the AI tools that I used to help me get through the finish line there. So this tool that we're looking at right now is ElevenLabs. It's an AI voice platform, and I was introduced to it when I participated in the Bolt hackathon. I wanted to build a tool that would take voice transcripts that I'm recording and turn them into something useful. And so I played around a little bit with ElevenLabs agents platform in order to be that recording piece and that transcript piece. And I've played around with a lot of other features. I've made a clone of my voice. I've created new voices. I've done translations with different types of voices. And I wrote about it all in an article for Zapier, so I'll make sure to link to that. But today we're going to focus on the agents platform and how I used it to help me secure a new full-time role. So let's go ahead and navigate to the agents platform. And we will go into this agents area, and we're going to focus on this job interview practice agent. So a little bit of backstory before I explain kind of how this works and give you just like a short demo here. So one thing that I did that I think is just supercharging, what anybody would do in order to research a company, get to know it, and prepare for an interview is I really started in ChatGPT. And what I did was for the different roles that I interviewed for, I went into ChatGPT and asked it to conduct a deep research report for me. And what I included, and I think is probably relevant for just about any role, but was super relevant for finding a position in marketing and being well prepared to understand that company and how I could contribute to it, was asking things that I would ask any client that I would onboard, essentially, like, what does the company do? What are their service offerings? Who are their competitors and how are they different? What audiences do they target? Any sort of, current initiatives, things in the news, anything that I could find publicly. So I started with just understanding the brand and especially their content approach because I was looking for content roles. So doing that, and then kind of the next layer was, getting past a recruiter interview where you really need, mostly the surface information about that. It was then layering in information about the people that I was interviewing with, especially, as it goes up from the person who's the hiring manager. If I'm interviewing with their boss, I need to know about them, any other people on the team that I might be interviewing with. And so basically just having a chat thread where I keep doing deep research, keep layering in these layers, especially when it comes to the people I'm interviewing with, like what makes them tick? What can you glean from their LinkedIn portfolios? And a lot of people in the content space also have their own portfolio websites. So what have they written about? Have they been on podcasts and shared, their approach to content marketing? So all of those things helped me, and ChatGPT helped me to really synthesize that information. And especially for maybe like the more public figures that I interviewed with, being able to summarize their podcasts. I actually went and listened to some of them too so that I could dig in deeper. But having that surface level knowledge, having a direction to point to, where I should do more digging and spend more time, it was still a process, right? To ask for the right information, to read, those external sources or to listen to podcasts. It still took a significant amount of time, I would say, to do the amount of prep that felt right in order to feel, truly prepared, perhaps even over prepared, but, definitely putting my best foot forward. But again, using ChatGPT and using AI processes really helped. So a couple other things, in doing the deep research or maybe augmenting it, I would also add, here's the job description for the specific role that I applied to. Um, it was also doing things like, and kind of what we're getting to here, um, using all of that information as well as adding my resume to the chat, adding other materials like the cover letter, or I kind of made like a little portfolio of work, in the past couple of years that I've worked on, testimonials, results, and things like that. So layering all these data sources in a really effective way. And then finally saying, when I interview with this person, based on the things about this role, about what you can glean from them and kind of like how their mind works and what makes them tick and what are they going to be concerned with, what are some potential interview questions that they might ask me. And so I built this agent on ElevenLabs to give myself the opportunity, not only to just kind of sit with those questions, but to be able to verbally respond to them, because it's certainly one thing to go in and I would even ask it, based on my resume, based on this portfolio of results that I gave you, how might I go about answering these in an effective way? So I had to create kind of a rough draft for me, but I feel like it's really a different thing to actually verbally respond, to have to like think through it and think through how you're going to communicate that in a verbal way. So this agent was an effective way to do that. So let's talk a little bit about how I built this agent, and it's really simple. I think I probably had ChatGPT help me with the directions here, but essentially, yeah, so I've just named it job interview practice agent. I gave it a first message to kind of, kick things off, and you could replace enterprise B2B technology brand with the different brands that I interviewed with or whichever you're interviewing with. It just says, hi, great to meet you. I'm excited to chat with you today about the head of content marketing role at, fill in the blank. And then, yeah, I think I had ChatGPT fill out most of this. And so it's just kind of setting the stage. This is a voice agent, so it's an agent that exists to like go back and forth with you. So that's what a lot of this is. And, fine tuning it for this job interviewing purpose so that it would simulate as close to possible what a job interview might look like for this position, for this role. And so at the part, that was the big customizer, I guess, was you will ask the following questions in any order until they are all addressed, plus any thoughtful follow-up questions based on the candidate's answers. I think that piece, the thoughtful follow-up questions, is important because it gives you some level of dynamicness. Obviously you can do all this prep and then you're going to get totally different questions probably. And so being prepared for the possibility of different things, I think, is just as important as preparing for, likely questions that you can anticipate. So yeah, just stuff like, how would you build an SEO content strategy around a new product launch? It was things about like, how do you use AI in your content strategy process? What kinds of tools do you use? Whatever, just things that again came from doing that research and trying to put them into the perspective of that interviewer and what they care about. And so your research results will vary. You could certainly use these questions that I came up with. One thing that I also did is I added like a PDF, or I just kind of like took, copy pasted from ChatGPT, the deep research, and added it as an agent knowledge base here. So I just added a document that was like, here's kind of the context that you're working off of. So that would be another good way, I think, to customize this and make it more useful. But there are a lot of other tools and connecting MCP servers, whatever, that I didn't do just because it wasn't really necessary for this particular agent. The only other thing that I customized was, I think, let's see if I can find it really quick. You could change the voice. So I sometimes changed it, based on like the nationality of the person that I was conversing with and like, their gender and stuff like that, just to make it feel as close as possible to the interview. But that's just like a little quirk. There's something else here in terms of like how long the chat is, and maybe that was on the first page. Let me just see if I could find it really quick so I could show you, because in my early tests of the agent, it was stopping the call before it got through all the questions. So Here is where you can customize the number of seconds that a conversation can last. I don't know if this even covered, all the questions that I had, but again, just like something you can do to customize it to your needs. That was really it. So I'll just show you kind of what it looks like.
Hi, great to meet you. I'm excited to chat with you today about the head of content marketing role at our enterprise B2B technology brand.
Me too. I'm excited to chat with you.
Wonderful. To start us off, could you walk me through a piece of content you created that drove outsized SEO results?
So as you can see, it kind of goes through those questions. You probably noticed that it did that first question that I explicitly asked it to ask me to kick off the conversation. And then it just goes back and forth, and per the instructions I gave it, it gets a little bit more dynamic. So that is, a big chunk, I would say, of my job interview preparation process going into interviews. There were certainly other things that I used AI for. I spent probably 3 days updating my resume because I hadn't updated it since 2017. I used it to help me to create cover letters by combining, what I said in my resume, what I put in that portfolio document that I created, and then converging, with the job description, and then editing, of course, the output. It was never right, the first time around. It just gave me a good foundation. And yeah, I mean, I think that it's fair to say that when it comes to using AI in the job search, like it's only as useful as the questions you ask it, your own documentation that you're creating and providing to it as context. But certainly there are things that you can do, like using deep research, like using tools like this job interviewing agent that I think can help you feel a little bit more prepared and confident going into those interviews. And I ended up interviewing at two places. I got two job offers with this process, so I know that it definitely works. And if you have any questions, about what that process was like, or using these tools, and just looking for words of encouragement, I would be happy to help. So I just wanted to share this tool, the deep research piece of it, and hope that it's useful for you if you're going through that job search, or um, you know, just changing things up. One more thing I wanted to make sure to comment on, especially for job hunters who are trying to keep costs low, is that you should be able to access the features that I discussed with a free plan or starting at a free plan. Specifically, agents are included in the free plan. It's basically everything on ElevenLabs is credit driven. So it's just like I think with agents, it's based on the minutes that you're conversing with the agent. There may be certain features that you may or may not have access to, but I think that the workflow that I've described and the basic way that it works, you should have access to, starting with a free plan. Otherwise, honestly, I think their plans are very fairly priced. The starter plan, for example, which adds a commercial license if you actually want to use their AI voice technology. And using tools like I think ElevenLabs music is also included in that. Let's see if I can figure that out really quick here. Oh, you can actually do that starting in the free plan as well. Lots of fun things to play with. So I would encourage you to certainly start with the free plan and just play around. And if you're hitting credit limits, to then upgrade. And if you're going to use it for commercial purposes, then you'll need to upgrade. And then with ChatGPT specifically, it looks like you can use deep research on a limited basis with the free plan. I use ChatGPT. I think it's Pro. Let's just look. Plus, I use a $20 a month plan. And so I get a certain amount of deep research reports, and I haven't used it enough where I've hit the limit on that yet. And I do use it fairly often, whether it's for professional things or personal things. And so again, it looks like you can use all the features that I discussed starting with a free plan. I'm not entirely sure what those limitations would be, like with deep research, but probably you get at least, a couple of reports included. And so that should be sufficient. Depending on the number of jobs you're interviewing for, obviously, and the amount of deep research you're doing on the company versus the individuals. Probably a best practice if you're trying to conserve those credits is to combine your queries about, the company itself and the people you're interviewing with in one deep research report. But if you're using the plus plan or above, you'll have a little bit more leniency with